November 11th, and we're at Bob Furr's new house, way out in West Omaha. We're going to do a video here on his method of cutting foam wings out of white polystyrene foam using an electric-powered cutting bow. We're going to go into some of the details on how he puts the bow together, where he gets his materials, the type of foam he uses. We'll be cutting some combat wings. It's Bob's own design of combat wing. And we'll move on to some other things, possibly coring out a commercial wing to a SIG Magnum stunner. And look at some of the other experiments that Bob has going here, possibly get some video of the shop. The Pearsons are here today, Don and Wade Pearson. My name's Ed Prohaska. I'm the cameraman. Unlikely you'll see any of me on the video. But I guess hopefully we'll all learn some things here today, and it'll be a nice informational thing, and we'll see how it goes.
Wade, we're really going to need you in here so you can ask good questions, and you can't stay off camera forever. Cutting foam wings, I used a book from RCM, Control Modelers, on cutting foam wings. And they started you out with this big monster, and their idea of a bow is even bigger than this. You start with a 2x4 in their design, and you basically do the same thing this one has. This is steel wire instead of nichrome because it works as well. It just uses a little more current to get it to work. But the RCM plans actually had you mount this whole thing on a pulley system with counterweights from your ceiling, which to me is insane. I mean, first off, it's heavy, it's hard to handle, takes 2 people to move it, and so I graduated from my first bow, which took 2 people to cut a wing, to a very, very, very lightweight bow made from a piece of dowel rod and some 12,000 flying line. And we'll use this one for everything we cut today, and you get a chance to see how well it works. I really strongly believe in the KISS system. Keep it simple.
Are the dowels notched on the end?
Yeah, a little notch. It's just like making an old bow for a toy bow and arrow set. And in fact, if I could find a fiberglass bow, you know, a regular arrow bow and arrow set bow, I would probably buy it and use it for this.
And that's just 12,000 stranded steel flying lines.
That's just flying line. And in fact, it's from an old set of half-A combat lines. Anyway, the bows are pretty simple. I wanted to talk a little bit about the foam and maybe point out some things. When you talk to people on the commercial end about foam, they usually tell you that you should be using virgin foam. Okay, back to where we were at. The foam that I use is just normal insulation foam. I've been buying it at Payless Cashway, but they've gone out of business. So I'm going to have to go to Menards, but that's not a big problem. The foam's the same. Ed, if you can focus close, you can see some of the regrind in this foam. A little speck of red there, a little speck of blue there. I look for foam that has very few specks of obvious reground material. So, and this is pretty good. Some of this foam I have over here is actually beautiful, and it has nothing at all in it. I mean, this is probably virgin foam. It's just beautiful foam. But anyway, even when there's a little bit of regrind, sometimes that gives you a problem cutting a wing, but it's not a terrible problem, and we'll get into that real quickly here. Ed, I think best bet's for me to come up with some signal so that you know when to stop. Is making the templates. And one of the nice things about foam wings is that you only have to make 2 ribs. Now they have to be the best ribs you can possibly make. I used to use plywood, and I'd make the templates out of plywood, but the problem is that over time that hot wire eats into the plywood so that the edges begin to get rough. And if you sand them a little bit to get them smooth, obviously your templates over time get smaller and smaller. So I switched to Formica, and basically, you know, visit a construction site, pick up a couple scraps of Formica, and you probably have all the Formica you'll need for your entire life, because the Formica is really heat resistant, and it lasts a very long time. It's also very easy to work with because it's basically a plastic material. I think it has a thin layer of wood into the backing here, but it's a very easy material to work with. It cuts on a Dremel jigsaw real well, or any kind of scroll saw, and then it sands just very, very nicely with different grades of sandpaper, so you get a very, very good, smooth, clean edge. In a little bit, we'll cut a template for coring a wing, and it uses the same process as doing an external template. But this template here is the center board and the tip for the combat wings that I usually use, and that I use on a lot of my sport planes, not just my combat planes. Anyway, first place to start is determining how far back the leading edge is going to sweep. Now with this particular design, I've got spars, so the notches, I just line up my notches, and then I measure, and this is just under an inch, so it's 7/8 of an inch. And we got to remember that number, 7/8 of an inch. And what we're going to do, there's a time. What we're going to do, now that we've got this measurement of 7/8 of an inch, is create a blank that we're going to use to cut the wing from. And we'll start by just squaring one of these up right to the end of, this is a template for cutting a blank, right to the end of this block of foam. The other one, we're going to measure back, let me trade sides here. The other one, we're going to measure back 7/8 of an inch. Okay. Right like that. And this will give us our leading edge sweep. Pretty straightforward. Okay. Now make sure those are on securely. What I use there, by the way, these are roofing nails that are coated with some kind of plating. I'm not sure what it is. Galvanized roofing nails, because they grip into the foam really, really well. And these are just, as you can see, some little sheets of 16th plywood. This is to get my first cut. And you can cut it for a moment. When I first started cutting foam wings, I didn't have a big power source, and so I did a little experimenting. This 12 thousandths flying line happens to be